Joining me now is writer and broadcaster Esther Krakue. Esther, it hasn't been a great news week for the Sussexes. Ashley Hansen, the Sussexes communications chief, has apparently left their employ. She seems to be the latest in a long list to go. What's the story?
Yes, every time we hear of one of the Sussexes employees leaving, it's kind of like another one. I believe they're up to like 19 members of staff that have left since the Sussexes decided to break from the royal family. Ashley Hansen, though, is a bit of a unique case. Firstly, because she's lasted for 2 years with the Sussexes, and I suspect you can liken that to completing the 12 labours of Hercules. But also, she's not entirely left the employ of the Sussexes. She's going to create her own PR consulting firm, of which the Sussexes will still remain a client of hers. So Gate Strategy is still going to retain the Sussexes as one of her clients, and she's going to be managing some of Meghan's brands, including American Riviera Orchard, if it still even exists in that name or that form. And we also know that Meghan has kind of made supporting female entrepreneurs her big shtick, her big thing. So we hear that she's going to actually be investing in Ashley's company as well. So they'll sort of be business partners as well as sort of have an employee-employer dynamic. And so that's what kind of makes it a bit unique. But yes, you know, the trouble with the Sussexes is the fact that everyone keeps hearing about, staff members leaving, having such a high turnover of staff, particularly even when Meghan was in the royal family. We heard about that spat between her and her members of staff through Harry's recollection in Spare. But the question is, will the Sussexes be able to settle into some sort of pattern? Will they get better at managing people and actually retaining staff? Ashley seems to be one of those few staff members that have actually stayed for longer, for a longer period, and has actually kind of remained quite faithful and loyal to them. We know that when there were rumors that Meghan was a difficult boss a few weeks ago, Ashley was one of the few people that came out and defended the Sussexes and said, when I had to take time off for medical reasons, I was inundated with roses and flowers and all of that. Now, does that make a good boss? I don't know. I suspect it's one of those things that I'm sure most employees would appreciate. But the day-to-day is also something that's quite important. And we're still hearing quite mixed reports about what it's like to work with the Sussexes, particularly Meghan. And it's not looking good at the moment. So let's see if they'll be able to turn things around.
Now, another interesting story, this time regards a financial issue with the Sussexes Archewell Foundation. $4 million apparently unaccounted for on their latest tax return. Is this just an oversight? What's happened here?
Yeah, so the Archewell Foundation received $6 million in donations over the last year, but they've only declared $2 million. The suspicion is that they will declare the other missing $4 million, because $4 million doesn't just go missing, in the next tax year. But there are also questions of who's actually funding the Archewell Foundation. There are rumors that it's just a handful of very, very wealthy benefactors, which would actually draw into question how much impact the Archewell Foundation is having if it's just a few of the Sussexes' very, very rich friends trying to prop up this organization. It doesn't hold as much weight as having sort of smaller but more donors from the average public. I think most of the public don't even know what the Archewell Foundation does. They can't really name any sort of initiative that they've really spearheaded. We know that the Prince Harry is into his Invictus Games, but that's really more of his project, and it's a project that he started when he was still a working member of the royal family. What the Archewell Foundation has done, we still don't know. We know that the couple works about 52 days a year, from sort of what we've seen of the records from the charity. The question is, will they actually be able to produce that $4 million? Because one thing I can tell you is you do not want to get the IRS on your bad side, and they will probably have to account for where that money has gone to.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyone else would have to account for it. Now, back to Harry's long run of litigation against the UK press, and this time it's The Sun. We understand claims of bugging and tracking devices have been thrown out by a High Court judge. Can you explain what's happened here?
So the trial against The Sun is due to start in January, but the preliminary hearing, which happened a few weeks ago, the judge threw out his case that he wanted to bring forward as part of the overall case, which is about phone bugging and having sort of tracking and audio devices attached to him and his person and to people around him to try and figure out what he's doing. And the judge said, you have no evidence for this. You're just going on a hunch. The judge basically told him not to waste the court's time, which seemed quite harsh. But it really seems that Prince Harry is like a dog with a bone. But again, that bone may not be rooted in reality or any evidence. And it's really quite surprising, actually, that his lawyers thought it was advisable for him to even try and present this as part of his case against the Sun, because you have to have evidence of these sorts of things. You can't just think, just because I had a conversation that no one else could have heard of other than phone bugging, that's somehow permissible in court. And we've seen from sort of previous, with previous appearances in court, he said, oh, there's no way they could have got this information, but they got it because it was either released by the palace in a statement or it was actually published in other newspapers. So you can really see a paranoia here that's driving Prince Harry's vendetta against British media that's not really rooted in fact. And the judge is calling him up on it, which can be quite embarrassing, actually, if it keeps happening.